Childhood crush who rejected me now says she wants to be with me just as I was about to propose to her younger sister. Alright, so I guess I should start this by saying, yeah, I've always been in love with Chloe. I know, super original, right? But I'm not kidding. This girl's been in my life since forever. We grew up in the same neighborhood in Reno, Nevada, and our families were super tight. Like, we do everything together. Every birthday, every holiday, Christmas, New Year's, you name it. It was always me, Chloe, and our families. There was no avoiding her, and honestly, I didn't want to. I was pretty much hooked on her from day one. I don't know when exactly I realized I had feelings for her. Probably around middle school, like 12 or 13. I just remember thinking she was perfect. Funny, smart, beautiful, and always nice to everyone. I mean, you know how it is when you're that age. Everything feels so dramatic. I spent way too much time daydreaming about her, imagining how one day she'd wake up and see me in the same way. Spoiler alert, that never happened, at least not when I needed it to. So, fast forward to when we were 15. I worked up the courage to tell her how I felt. I'm talking a whole plan. I wrote this long-ass letter because, talking about your feelings when you're a teen is impossible. I think I had rewritten that thing like 10 times before I was finally satisfied with it. I handed it to her after school one day when we were walking back to our houses. I remember she looked at me, all surprised, and said, "What's this?" I just mumbled something stupid like, just read it later. And that's exactly what she did. The next day, she came up to me and I could tell immediately this wasn't going to go the way I hoped. She smiled, like in a sad kind of way, and said, "Marcus, I love you, but like as a friend, I don't want to ruin what we have." Man, that was a gut punch. She said she didn't want to risk our friendship, which, yeah, is fair. But then she added, "Maybe someday things will be different." Maybe someday became the words I held onto for way too long. I accepted it, though. What was I going to do? She wanted to stay friends, and I wasn't going to throw that away. So I did what every lovesick teenage boy does. I shoved my feelings deep down and pretended everything was cool. And for a while, it kind of worked. Things got trickier when we hit 18 and were getting ready for college. By then, I thought I had moved on. I mean, I still liked Chloe, but I'd convinced myself that maybe it was just some childhood crush, Like, the feelings weren't as strong as they used to be. So I figured, why not try again? Maybe we'd both grown up a bit and things would be different. So I went for it again. This time I didn't do the whole letter thing. I just straight up told her how I felt. We were hanging out by this lake near our neighborhood, and I thought it was the perfect moment. But, surprise, surprise, it wasn't. She shot me down again. And this time she was more blunt about it. She said, "Marcus, I'm not ready for anything serious. I want to live my life, go to college, meet new people, experience stuff." I felt like such an idiot. I had really thought she was going to say yes, but instead she told me she didn't even want to go to the same college as me anymore. Turns out she had changed her mind last minute and decided to go to some school in LA, while I stuck to our original plan and went to Sacramento. That moment stung. Like, not only did she not want to be with me, but she also didn't even want to go to the same school anymore. She was going to be out there, meeting new people, partying it up, living the life she always talked about. And I was left feeling like I was the guy stuck in place. I couldn't just let go, though. At first, I was always checking her social media, Like, she was always posting these pictures from parties, laughing, surrounded by new friends, and yeah, some guys too. It killed me to see it. It felt like she had already moved on from everything, like our entire childhood friendship didn't even matter. I couldn't let that take over my life, though. I had my own stuff to focus on. So after a while, I decided I had to stop looking at her posts and just focus on school. My grades had started slipping because I was so hung up on her, so I figured I'd throw myself into my studies and get back on track. Honestly, it worked for a bit. I stopped thinking about her 24/7. I started going to the gym more and working out, and I even made some new friends. It felt good. I felt like I was finally getting over her. Life was starting to feel normal again. But then, out of nowhere, Sophie, Chloe's little sister, popped back into my life. I was on campus just minding my business when I ran into her. I almost didn't recognize her at first. The last time I saw Sophie, she was like 16, shy, and kinda always in Chloe's shadow. But now she had grown up. She was confident, outgoing, and looked, well, amazing, to be honest. We started talking, and it was kind of weird at first because we hadn't really spoken much growing up. But after a few minutes, the conversation started flowing. We laughed, joked around, and I realized that Sophie was actually really cool. We ended up grabbing coffee, and what was supposed to be a quick catch-up turned into a whole afternoon of just hanging out. We talked about how college was going, how things had changed, and how it was weird that Chloe and I hadn't spoken in a while. Sophie mentioned she hadn't seen much of her sister either. Chloe, it seemed, had kind of pulled away from everyone after she moved to LA. It was strange, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. The more Sophie and I hung out, the more I started to like her. Not just as Chloe's little sister, but as someone I genuinely enjoyed spending time with. It wasn't some instant love at first sight thing, but over time it just felt right. She was always there for me, and we got along so well. It was like everything I had ever wanted with Chloe, but now with someone who actually cared about me. Looking back, I think meeting Sophie when I did was a blessing. It pulled me out of the funk I'd been in since high school and gave me something real to focus on. It wasn't about trying to win over a crush or chasing some fantasy. Sophie was real, and I started falling for her before I even realized it. But of course, life wasn't about to let things go smoothly. After that first time I ran into Sophie on campus, things just kind of took off from there. It's weird how life works, you know? Like, I had been so stuck on Chloe for years, and then here comes Sophie, and suddenly everything feels different. It wasn't like some big moment where I was like, oh, I'm in love now? Nah, it was more like a slow build. The more we hung out, the more I realized how much I enjoyed being around her. Sophie and I started seeing each other pretty often after that. It wasn't anything planned, just like we'd run into each other on campus or end up sitting together in the dining hall. At first it was casual. We'd talk about classes, joke around about how awful the food was, stuff like that. But I started to notice that I was looking forward to seeing her more and more. One day we decided to hit the gym together. Now, this was something new for me because growing up, Sophie was always the shy, quiet one, like I said before. But now, she was confident, and it showed in everything she did. So, we hit the gym, and to my surprise, Sophie was all in. She was serious about it, and it motivated me to step up my own game. I don't know if it was the endorphins or what, but after that first workout together, I realized I was really into her. Not just physically, though yeah, she was gorgeous, but just being around her made me feel good. She was easy to talk to, always positive, and actually cared about what I had to say. What really caught me off guard, though, was how she started flirting with me. It wasn't like in your face or anything, but there were little things. She'd laugh at my dumb jokes, touch my arm when we were talking, stuff like that. At first, I thought maybe I was just imagining it. I mean, this was Sophie, Chloe's little sister. But as time went on, it became pretty clear that she liked me too. One day, we were grabbing coffee after a study session, and she just came out and said it. We were sitting at this tiny table by the window, and out of nowhere, she was like, "You know, I used to have the biggest crush on you when we were younger." I nearly spit out my coffee. I was like, "Wait, what? Are you serious?" She laughed and nodded, looking kind of shy for the first time in a while. "Yeah, but I knew you were all about Chloe, so I never said anything." That hit me like a truck. I mean, here I was, thinking Sophie had just been this quiet background character in my life, and all the while, she had feelings for me. It kind of made me feel like a total idiot for not noticing, but at the same time, it made me like her even more. We sat there for a few minutes in this weird, awkward silence, both of us just kind of processing what she had said. Finally, I looked at her and said, "Well, I think I might have been a little blind back then." She laughed again, and we ended up talking for hours that day. It was one of those moments where everything just clicked, you know? Like, I wasn't nervous or overthinking anything for the first time in forever. I was just happy. A few weeks after that, I asked Sophie if she wanted to grab dinner, just the two of us. I didn't call it a date, but I think we both knew what it was. We went to this little taco place off campus that I loved, and we ended up staying there for hours, just talking. We talked about everything, our childhoods, our families, what we wanted out of life. It was the kind of conversation that made me feel closer to her than I ever thought possible. By the end of the night, it was clear that this wasn't just two friends hanging out anymore. Something had shifted between us. As we were walking back to her dorm, I stopped her and said, "Sophie, I really like you. I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out, but I do." She smiled, and I'll never forget what she said next. "I've been waiting for you to say that." I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty nervous. I mean, this was a huge step. This was Chloe's sister, and part of me was worried about what Chloe would think if she found out. But at the same time, I didn't care. Chloe had made it clear she didn't want anything more than friendship, and now, here was Sophie, who had been there all along, waiting for her chance. We started dating after that. It wasn't like this big dramatic thing where we announced it to the world. We kept it low-key for a while, mostly because we didn't want our families to find out right away. I mean, how awkward would that be? "Hey, remember how I was obsessed with your older daughter? Well, now I'm dating your younger one." Yeah, not exactly the conversation I wanted to have, but man, dating Sophie was everything I didn't know I needed. She was supportive, fun, and just easy to be around. We'd spend weekends together exploring the city or just chilling at my apartment, watching movies and ordering takeout. It felt so natural, like we'd always been meant to be together. I wasn't thinking about Chloe anymore. Sure, she crossed my mind from time to time, but in a distant way, like a what if that didn't matter anymore. Sophie was the one who was there for me, who made me laugh, who wanted to build something real with me. And honestly, I was falling for her hard. But of course, nothing stays simple forever, right? As things between Sophie and I got more serious, the thought of telling our families started weighing on me. We couldn't keep it a secret forever, and eventually, we'd have to face whatever awkwardness came with it. Plus, I wasn't sure how Chloe would react. She was still doing her thing in LA, but part of me couldn't shake the feeling that this might cause some drama when she found out. I wasn't sure if I was ready for that, but at the same time, I knew Sophie was worth it. She was everything I had been searching for, and I wasn't going to let anything or anyone get in the way of that. Little did I know the drama was closer than I thought, and when it finally hit, it hit hard. Update 1. Alright, so fast forward a couple of years. Sophie and I are doing great. We've been dating for almost 2 years by this point, and honestly, everything's been going way better than I ever thought it would. I'm working at this tech company in Sacramento, Sophie's about to graduate, and life's just smooth. Like, for the first time in a long time, everything seems to be falling into place. I'd been thinking about proposing for a while. I mean, when you just know, right? Sophie's been there for me in ways I can't even explain. She's kind of my rock, and I wanted to lock this down before anything messed it up. I wasn't going to wait around for things to get complicated again. I decided to propose during this big family weekend we had planned. Both of our families were going to be there, and I thought it'd be perfect. I'm all about the big gestures, and I wanted everyone there to witness it. Parents, cousins, everybody. I had even bought this ring months before, just waiting for the right moment. I didn't tell Sophie, of course. It was going to be a surprise. I played it off like it was just another family gathering. I told her I was heading back home a couple of days early to help my parents set up, and that she should join me on Saturday. She didn't think anything of it, but she did look a bit confused when I mentioned going alone. I waved it off, though, and she didn't ask too many questions. So I get to my parents' house on Thursday, and right away something feels off. Everyone's acting kind of weird. My mom's being overly nice, which is always a red flag. You know how parents get when they're hiding something? Yeah, it was like that. I didn't pay too much attention to it at first because I was so focused on the proposal, but in the back of my head, I knew something was up. Then, out of nowhere, Chloe shows up. Now, here's the thing. Chloe hadn't been home in years. She was living in LA, doing whatever it was she did out there. We hadn't really kept in touch. I mean, we were civil when we saw each other, but our lives had gone in totally different directions. So seeing her walk into my parents' house was a shock. I didn't know she was going to be there, and honestly, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. She came over, all smiles, and hugged me like nothing had changed. It was weird, but I didn't think too much of it. I figured, whatever, it's been a long time, and maybe she's just here to hang out with the family like old times. But man, was I wrong. That night at dinner, I was about to make my big move. I had the whole speech planned out in my head. I was going to stand up, thank everyone for being there, and then drop the proposal bomb right in the middle of the room. I was nervous as hell, but excited too. But before I could say a word, Chloe stands up, clears her throat, and says, "I have something to say." I'm sitting there, confused as hell, thinking, what's she doing? Then she looks right at me and goes, "Marcus, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I realized something. I love you. I've always loved you, and I'm ready now. I want us to be together." You know that feeling when your brain just stops working? Yeah, that was me at that moment. I couldn't even process what she was saying. Chloe? After all these years? Now? It felt like the whole room froze. My mom gasped, and our dads were just staring, waiting for me to say something. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there, trying to figure out if this is some kind of prank or if she's actually serious. I managed to get out a shaky, what? Chloe smiled, like this was the most normal thing in the world, and said, "I know I pushed you away before, but I'm ready now. I know we're meant to be." I had no idea how to respond. Like, what the hell? I've been dating her sister for 2 years, and now she's suddenly telling me she wants to be with me? The worst part was, it felt like everyone in the room was just waiting for me to go along with it. My mom looked thrilled, like this was the best news she'd ever heard. Chloe's parents were nodding, smiling. Even my dad, who usually stays out of stuff like this, seemed like he was on board. I had to set things straight, and fast. I stood up and said, "No, Chloe, I'm with Sophie. I've been with her for 2 years and I love her. I'm actually about to propose to her. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Chloe's smile disappeared instantly, and she just stared at me like she couldn't believe what I'd just said. Then she started crying. Not like soft crying either, full-on sobbing. She ran out of the room and her mom went after her. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, feeling like the biggest asshole in the world. My mom looked at me with this disappointed look on her face and said, "How could you say that? Don't you see she's always been in love with you?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she serious? After everything, they still thought Chloe and I were meant to be together? I tried to explain that I loved Sophie and that this was just some misunderstanding, but no one seemed to care. Chloe's dad stood up and said, "I won't allow you to marry Sophie after what you've done to Chloe. It's clear you've been leading her on." I couldn't believe what was happening. Leading her on? I hadn't even spoken to Chloe in years, and now suddenly, I'm the bad guy? I tried to defend myself, but it was like no one was listening. It was like they had all decided I was in the wrong, and that was that. At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. I didn't want to answer it at first because things were already bad enough, but I knew I had to tell her what was going on. I stepped outside, and when I picked up, she sounded upset. "What's happening, Marcus? I'm getting all these messages from my parents telling me to stay away from you. What's going on?" I didn't even know where to begin. I tried to calm her down, but I was freaking out myself. I told her I'd explain everything when she got there the next day. I could tell she was hurt, confused, and worried, and honestly, I felt like crap for not being able to fix it right then and there. When I walked back into the house, everyone was still tense. My mom was sitting there, arms crossed, glaring at me like I had betrayed the entire family. Chloe hadn't come back yet, and her dad was pacing around the room like he was ready to punch me. I knew things were about to get even worse, but at that moment, all I could think about was Sophie. I had to find a way to fix this mess before it blew up in my face even more. Update 2. By the time Sophie arrived the next day, I felt like I was drowning in this mess. I hadn't slept much, and my brain was still spinning from everything that had gone down with Chloe. I mean, how do you even explain that your ex-crush suddenly wants to be with you while you're about to propose to her younger sister? And not just to Sophie. How do you explain it to your entire family who seems to be siding with Chloe? I was so screwed. When Sophie walked in, she could tell something was really wrong. I could see it in her eyes. She was worried, but also confused as hell. I mean, she had gotten random texts and calls from her parents, basically telling her to be careful around me, which made zero sense to her. She came up to me, hugged me, and asked, "What the hell is going on?" I took a deep breath and tried to break it down for her, starting with the dinner, Chloe's whole confession, and how everything just spiraled out of control. As I explained, I could see her face going from concerned to downright angry, but not at me, at Chloe. She couldn't believe her sister would pull something like this out of nowhere, especially knowing how serious our relationship was. Sophie was quiet for a second after I finished talking, and I could see she was trying to hold back her emotions. Finally, she looked at me and said, "We need to talk to my parents. Now." I wasn't exactly excited about that idea. I mean, I had just spent the last 24 hours dealing with all kinds of drama, and facing her parents after all this. That was the last thing I wanted to do. But I knew Sophie wasn't going to let this go. She wanted answers, and she wasn't going to sit around waiting for them. We got in the car and drove over to her parents' house, which was only a few blocks away. The whole drive there, I was stressing out about what was going to happen. I kept thinking, what if her parents are on Chloe's side too? What if they think I've been leading her on, just like everyone else? When we pulled up to her parents' house, Sophie practically marched to the door. She wasn't messing around, and honestly, that gave me a bit of confidence. At least I wasn't walking into this alone. Her mom opened the door, and as soon as she saw us, she looked nervous. She tried to play it cool, though, with one of those fake smiles. "Oh, Sophie, we weren't expecting you so soon." Sophie didn't even wait for pleasantries. "What's going on with Chloe?" she asked, walking straight into the living room. I followed her, feeling like I was walking into enemy territory. Her dad was sitting on the couch watching TV, but when he saw us, he quickly turned it off and stood up. "Sophie, Marcus," he said like he was greeting us at a family reunion or something, but Sophie wasn't having it. "Why are you and Mom texting me, telling me to stay away from Marcus? And why is Chloe acting like she's suddenly in love with him?" Her voice was steady, but I could tell she was furious. Her dad looked at her mom, who gave him this, "we need to talk" look. That's when I knew things were about to get even more complicated. "Sophie, honey, there's a lot going on that you don't know about," her dad finally said. sighing like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sophie crossed her arms. Well, I'm here now, so why don't you explain? Her mom jumped in. Chloe's been really emotional lately. She's going through some things, and I think seeing Marcus again just brought back a lot of feelings for her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Feelings? Since when did Chloe have feelings for me? She had rejected me twice, and now they were acting like she had been heartbroken all these years. It didn't make any sense. Mom, this is ridiculous, Sophie said, her voice cracking a bit. Chloe never even mentioned Marcus after she moved to LA. She didn't care about him. And now, out of nowhere, she wants to be with him? What about me? What about our relationship? Her dad stepped in. Sophie, we know this is hard to hear, but we think Chloe is really hurting right now. She's been struggling, and maybe this is her way of dealing with things. I was standing there watching this whole conversation, and it was clear they were trying to downplay Chloe's behavior, like it was some sort of phase she was going through. But this wasn't a phase. She had tried to derail my proposal to Sophie, and her parents were just brushing it off. Finally, I had to speak up. Look, I'm sorry Chloe's going through stuff, but that doesn't give her the right to mess with my relationship with Sophie. I love Sophie, and I was planning to propose to her this weekend. Chloe's confession doesn't change anything. Sophie's mom looked shocked. You were going to propose? Yeah, I said, feeling a little awkward now that it was out in the open. I had this whole plan, but then Chloe... Well, you know what happened. Sophie's mom looked down like she was trying to process everything. Her dad rubbed his face, clearly stressed out. Marcus, we had no idea you were planning that. But you have to understand, Chloe's been through a lot. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I get that, but what about Sophie? What about what we've built together? Chloe doesn't get to just come in and try to ruin everything because she's having a hard time. Sophie's mom was quiet for a moment, then she finally nodded. You're right, Marcus, I'm sorry. We should have been more supportive of you and Sophie. Chloe's our daughter, and we're worried about her, but that doesn't excuse her behavior. Sophie took a deep breath, like she was trying to hold back tears. So what now? She asked, looking at her parents. Are you going to keep acting like Chloe is the victim here? Her dad sighed again. No, Sophie, we'll talk to her. We'll make sure she understands that this isn't okay, but it's going to take some time. I looked over at Sophie, and I could see the relief in her face, but there was also still anger. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't totally convinced her parents were going to handle it. Neither was I. We left the house shortly after that, both of us feeling a little better but still anxious about what was going to happen next. We hadn't seen the last of Chloe, that was for sure, and as much as I wanted to believe things would calm down, I knew deep down that more trouble was coming. Update 3. The tension between Chloe, Sophie, and our families didn't just disappear after that conversation with Sophie's parents. If anything, it only got worse. I could feel the weight of it hanging over everything we did. Sophie was trying to stay calm about it, but I knew her well enough to see that she was still hurt. It wasn't just about what Chloe did. It was the fact that her parents weren't fully on her side. That's gotta sting, right? I mean, how do you deal with your parents low-key backing your sister after she tries to mess up your relationship? I kept telling Sophie we'd get through it, that everything was gonna work out. But deep down, I knew things weren't over yet. Chloe wasn't the type to let things go so easily, and I was right. A few days later, we got a call from my mom. Apparently, Chloe had gone to my parents' house and had some kind of meltdown. She told them everything about her love for me, how she thought we were supposed to end up together, and how I had led her on all these years. My mom, of course, was eating it up. She always had this soft spot for Chloe, which I never really understood. So now my mom was convinced that I had been playing with Chloe's emotions this whole time, and she wanted me to fix things. Yeah, you read that right. My mom wanted me to fix it by breaking up with Sophie. She actually thought the solution was for me to leave Sophie and go be with Chloe, like that would somehow magically make everything okay. I couldn't believe it. I mean, what the hell? I tried to stay calm on the phone, but I lost it. Mom, what are you talking about? I never led Chloe on. She rejected me twice, and now just because she suddenly decides she's in love with me, I'm supposed to drop everything and go be with her? That's insane. But my mom didn't get it. She kept going on about how Chloe had been through a lot, how she just needed time to realize her feelings, blah blah blah. It was like she wasn't even hearing me. I hung up the phone after a while, feeling completely drained. I knew that this whole situation was only getting worse, and honestly, I didn't know what to do. Sophie could tell something was wrong as soon as I walked into the room. What's going on? She asked, looking up from her laptop. I sat down next to her and explained what my mom had said. Her face went from confused to angry in about 2 seconds. Wait, your mom wants you to break up with me? Are you serious? Sophie asked, her voice sharp. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. I told her it wasn't happening, but she doesn't seem to care. I said, rubbing my temples. It's like she's completely blind to what Chloe's doing. Sophie shook her head, clearly pissed off. I can't believe this. I can't believe our families are acting like this is normal. I know, it's insane. Sophie stood up, pacing the room. I could see she was holding back tears, which killed me inside. What are we supposed to do, Marcus? It feels like no one's on our side. Not my parents, not yours. What if this never ends? I stood up and hugged her, trying to reassure her even though I didn't have any solid answers. We'll figure it out. We're in this together, no matter what. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing, trying to think of ways to fix this situation, but nothing made sense. Every time I thought I had a solution, it felt like something else was going to blow up, and that's exactly what happened. The next day, we were having lunch when my phone buzzed. It was my dad, and his text just said, "You need to come home. Chloe's here. It's bad." I showed Sophie the message, and she gave me this look like, "Here we go again." We hopped in the car and drove to my parents' house. The whole drive, I was trying to prepare myself for whatever Chloe had cooked up this time. When we pulled up, I saw Chloe's car parked out front, and my stomach dropped. This wasn't going to be good. We walked in, and sure enough, Chloe was sitting on the couch, her face red from crying, with my mom sitting next to her, patting her back. My dad was standing nearby, looking stressed as hell. "Marcus," my mom said, standing up, "we need to talk." Sophie grabbed my hand and we walked into the living room, not saying a word. "Chloe's really hurting," my mom started, like that was supposed to make me feel bad for her. "She feels like you've abandoned her." "Abandoned her?" I said, barely holding back my frustration. "I'm with Sophie. I've been with her for 2 years. How am I abandoning Chloe?" Chloe stood up, wiping her eyes dramatically. "You promised me, Marcus. You said you'd wait for me. You told me we were meant to be together." I was stunned. I had never said anything like that. Ever. "Chloe, I don't know what you're talking about. I never promised you anything. You rejected me twice. Twice. And now you expect me to just drop everything for you? That's not how this works," I said, my voice rising. My mom tried to step in, but I wasn't having it. "Mom, stop. You can't keep defending her. This is crazy." Chloe looked at Sophie, and I could see the anger in her eyes. "You took him from me," she said, her voice low. "You knew I loved him, and you still took him." Sophie, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. "Chloe, I didn't take anything from you. You never wanted him. You made it clear that Marcus wasn't someone you cared about like that, so don't try to turn this on me." Chloe's face twisted in anger, and for a second I thought she was going to lash out physically, but instead, she just burst into more tears and ran out of the room. My mom, of course, went after her. I looked at my dad, who was just standing there, looking tired. "Dad, you've got to back me up here. This has to stop." He sighed and nodded. "I know, Marcus, I know, but you know how your mom is with Chloe. She can't see past it. She thinks Chloe's still that little girl she needs to protect." I shook my head, frustrated beyond belief. "Well, I'm done. I'm not playing this game anymore. If Chloe can't handle me being with Sophie, that's her problem, not mine." Sophie squeezed my hand, and we left the house. As we drove away, I felt this weird sense of relief, like maybe we were finally done with all this. But the truth was, we weren't. We had just taken the first step toward cutting out the toxicity. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. And no matter what, I wasn't losing Sophie over this mess.